The movie begins with an aerial view of a blazing house. Our perspective then shifts to the neighboring residence, where a path of muddy footprints converges at the doorstep, marked by ominous bloodstains. Lewis is at the wheel accompanied by his wife Rachel, their children Ellie and Gage, as well as Ellie's cat Church, as they journey from Boston to their recently acquired residence in Ludlow, Maine. Upon arriving, Ellie expresses her fascination with the new house and embarks on a tour of the surroundings. While Lewis heads to his job at the university hospital, Ellie and Rachel observe a group of children in eerie animal masks conducting a solemn procession for a deceased dog in the neighborhood. Ellie ventures away from home and stumbles upon the pet cemetery, where a misspelled sign reads, "Cemetery." When Ellie gets stung by a bee while attempting to climb logs, Judd, their new neighbor, comes to her aid and advises Rachel about the potential dangers in the area. Later that evening, Lewis engages Ellie in a conversation about death and the afterlife, reaffirming his belief in the absence of an afterlife. In the hospital, a young man named Victor is admitted after a hit-and-run accident, horrifying the nurses with his severely disfigured face and exposed brain. Lewis attempts to revive Victor but is unsuccessful. However, Victor momentarily regains consciousness and delivers a cryptic message about a crucial barrier that must not be breached before Lewis questions the reality of the encounter, leaving him deeply shaken. The next day, Ellie visits Judd with a basket of cookies and discovers a photograph of Judd's late wife, Norma, prompting her to inquire about her. Later, Judd joins the Creeds for dinner, where Ellie showcases her ballet skills. In the evening, Lewis experiences a vision in which Victor appears to call out to him. This vision transports him to a wooded area, where Victor imparts a warning about the sour ground. Lewis is abruptly awakened by Gage, initially dismissing the experience as a strange dream until he finds dirt-covered feet under his sheets. On Halloween night, Judd urgently summons Lewis, leading to the discovery of Church, their beloved cat, having been fatally struck by a truck. To spare Ellie from the grief, they decide to keep the incident a secret. Lewis confides in Rachel, prompting her to reveal her own haunting experiences stemming from her traumatic past, particularly her sister Zelda's tragic death. Lewis accompanies Judd to the pet cemetery to lay Church to rest, although Judd offers his assistance to spare Ellie from the sorrow of her loss. They ascend the pile of logs Ellie had previously attempted to climb and proceed to a burial ground where they enter Church. The subsequent morning, Lewis and Rachel make an effort to explain to Ellie that Church has run away, but Ellie insists that he returned during the night and is presently in the closet. To Lewis's astonishment, Ellie's claim proves true, albeit Church is noticeably altered. As Ellie endeavors to engage with Church, attempting to groom his tangled fur and detect an unpleasant odor, she inadvertently witnesses his aggressive side when he scratches her before darting away. Later on, as Lewis and Rachel seek an intimate moment, Church enters the scene, bearing a deceased bird to their bed and commencing the unsettling act of gnawing at its stomach. Lewis comes across a drawing that Ellie attributes to Gage, depicting a man being struck by a car and lying in a pool of blood, eerily resembling Victor's fate. Troubled by this, he seeks out Judd to discuss the perplexing return of Church. During their conversation, Judd imparts the unsettling legend surrounding the grounds, mentioning the existence of a supernatural entity known as the Wendigo, capable of resurrecting the deceased, albeit with disturbing alterations. Returning home, Lewis is confronted with a distressing scene as he discovers Church in Gage's crib. Although initially determined to euthanize the cat, he finds himself unable to carry out the act when Church momentarily appears to revert to his usual affectionate demeanor. Instead, Lewis decides to take Church to the highway and abandon him, opting to tell Ellie that he simply ran away. The family gathers to celebrate Ellie's 9th birthday, but there's a palpable absence due to Church's disappearance. While the children engage in play, Ellie becomes drawn to a sight she cannot resist, Church in the street. Ignoring the danger, she approaches him, prompting Gage to follow suit. In this perilous moment, Lewis becomes aware of Gage's presence on the road and rushes to rescue him, just as an oncoming truck approaches. The truck driver manages to swerve and avoid hitting them directly, but tragically, the tanker it's hauling veers off and strikes Ellie. Rachel is overwhelmed by grief and breaks down, while Lewis, consumed by devastation, rushes to his daughter's lifeless body. Ellie is laid to rest, and Rachel, overwhelmed by grief, decides to take Gage with her to stay at her parents' house. Later on, Judd joins Lewis outdoors, near a campfire, to share in his grief. Judd harbors a deep sense of responsibility for Ellie's tragic demise, believing that he should have never introduced Lewis to the burial grounds, convinced that there is a potent and malevolent force associated with it that affects anyone who comes near. Judd is aware of Lewis's intentions, but before he can attempt to dissuade him, Lewis takes matters into his own hands. He secretly drugs Judd's drink, waits for him to lose consciousness, and then departs. Lewis proceeds to the cemetery, where he exhumes Ellie's body and endeavors to bury her beyond the confines of the pet cemetery. Within a few hours, an astonishing development occurs when Ellie returns to her home, seemingly alive once more, though markedly different. Her speech is monotone, her eye bears disfigurement from the accident, and she possesses recollections of the moments leading up to her death. Lewis, perturbed by this surreal turn of events, sleeps beside her, his unease deepening. At Rachel's parents' residence, she becomes plagued by persistent haunting visions of Zelda. Gage begins to call out for Victor, appearing to be visited by his apparition as well. Rachel attempts to reach Lewis, who evades disclosing his actions. Frustrated by her inability to contact him, Rachel decides to cut short her stay and return home, reaching out to Judd to express her concern about being unable to reach Lewis. Judd pays a visit to the Creed residence to speak with Lewis, who deceitfully claims to have heard nothing from Rachel, appearing increasingly unhinged. Judd, aware of Lewis's actions, imparts what he believes must be done next, unintentionally within Ellie's earshot. Upon returning home, Judd senses movement inside his own house, prompting Ellie to sneak up on him and sever his Achilles tendon, rendering him incapacitated. In a sinister confrontation, Ellie taunts Judd, accusing him of allowing Norma to die, and even assumes Norma's appearance to torment him further. Ellie ultimately fatally stabs Judd to death. Rachel and Gage return home, and as Rachel moves to embrace Lewis, Ellie enters the scene, horrifying her mother. It becomes clear to Rachel that this is not her daughter, prompting her to rush upstairs with Gage. Lewis seeks assistance at Judd's house but discovers Judd's lifeless body. Returning to his own home, he finds Ellie attempting to break in while Rachel is in the process of lowering Gage out of a window. In a violent encounter, Ellie stabs Rachel in the abdomen. Despite her injuries, Rachel confronts Ellie, asserting that her real daughter is gone, and Ellie delivers the fatal blow before dragging Rachel's body away. Lewis locks Gage in the car and embarks on a pursuit to find Ellie. They encounter each other in the woods, and Lewis realizes that he must confront Ellie. Attempting to strangle her, he resorts to using a shovel to end her life. However, he hesitates when Ellie briefly reverts to her former self. Before he can act, Lewis is impaled through the chest by a resurrected Rachel. Together with Ellie, they drag Lewis to the pet cemetery. Morning arrives, and the undead Creeds have incinerated Judd's house. They approach the car, with Gage still inside, and Church leaps onto the vehicle. Lewis approaches his son, and Gage, oblivious to the horrors, unlocks the car.